Good afternoon, YouTube. In this video, we're going to set up some device groups with declarative onboarding. So this is more of a little bit of a complex or more of an advanced configuration with declarative onboarding. So declarative onboarding uses a declarative model to initially configure big IP, and this includes such a stuff like licensing, provisioning, networking settings, VLANs, etc. In my device, my licensing and provisioning is complete. I kind of just did this with my onboarding pretty much outside of DO. I licensed the device just for those demo purposes. However, you can use DO to license. With the establishment or the configuration of these device groups, the configuration really needs to be pretty much vanilla. So licensed, provisioning done, and at this point, we can then begin with the configuration. So as you can see right here, it's got a name on it. It has association with management. So I've configured the management IP. In fact, this is using DHCP. You can see right here in my device groups, it's really just itself. And on the standby device or the secondary device, it's also just itself. So both devices are pretty blank. There's no network configured. There's no VLANs configured. So if we look at our configuration here, that's the tenant name, and we then have NTP, and we have our internal external configured. So for example, you can see there line 25, it's my internal, my external, my VLANs associated, interfaces associated. So pretty simple. And then we've got our internal self, and then we've got our external self. So there's a little bit of difference here. So internal self, external local self. So that's kind of interesting. So you'll see here the internal self is just traffic group local. The external self is of course traffic group 1. So this is kind of where I'm putting my traffic group 1. I'm putting this on the external self. So you can see here, and then you can see the external local is of traffic group 1. And then I'm going to run my failover on, or my config sync and communication on the internal self. You can see this here, internal self, and then you got the two members of the groups, the first one, second one, and then of course the trust. This is the trust for the remote device. I'm gonna change this. I don't like to store this device trust. I don't like to store the local creds here. This is just my creds, but I think I'm gonna change this. This should somewhat maybe point to a secret or something like that. So I'm gonna file an enhancement for that. So let's go ahead and send this. We'll monitor this process, and we'll kind of see where this goes. So I'm using VS Code to make these configurations. I like VS Code. You can also use Postman. I use Postman in conjunction as well. I actually go and take a look at the configuration using Postman. So it really doesn't matter in this case. Totally depending upon what you want to do. If you're using VS Code, just make sure you're connected to the right device. I'm connected to the first device, and this is the big IP 1. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to highlight what I want to declare. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to post this declaration, and you can actually see this. You can actually see this working here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this recording. We'll come back to it once it has posted successfully, which actually shouldn't take too long. So as you can see, that is the status code that you want, 200 OK. You can actually see here on the first device, you can actually see the trust group is established. Of course, there's only one device because I've only configured the first device. Second device is not configured. There is my failover group. It is of itself, configuration time. What was also added here was the VLANs. You can see the external, internal VLANs, and of course the self IPs. Self IPs were added, including the external local self was added as well. You can actually see also from the code feedback, the declaration was successful. There's a change to the behavior that's coming in 136. There's another video on that already that's been recorded. But you can actually see here, there is the internal interface, internal self, external interface, external local self, external self. You can see that's here, then the default route, and the config sync is in internal, address failover internal, the failover group, you can see the failover group right there, the owner, there's the failover group, and there's the settings of that failover group. And then of course there's the trust below. So that works really nicely. I'm really happy with that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to point to my second device to actually get my second device working. So my second device, what I want to do is connect to my second device here. What I'm actually going to do, just to kind of keep this clean, I don't need to save that because that's actually the response. What I want to do is I'm just going to close this out just so that you don't make a mistake here. This is actually the second device here. And what I need to do on the VS Code extension is actually connect to that second device here. You can actually see here, I'm actually connecting to the second device and it has a 200 OK right there. So now I know that using VS Code, I'm actually connected to my second big IP. And what I'm actually going to do here is I'm actually going to deploy the second declaration to the second big IP, which is this one here. You can see there's nothing added. And this big IP should then add it to the trust. And this is actually where the HA state comes into play. And so let's go ahead and scroll everything here. Select all, and I'm going to go ahead and post this declaration. This might take a bit of time. So as you can see here on the second device, the 200 OK came back. This actually didn't take that long. So I'm actually really kind of impressed. This process was actually quite quick. So you can actually see here, this is on the second device, and the second device looks very much similar to the first one, where we had our internals and our externals, our internal self and external self, and then of course the external local self, which was configured, and then of course the configuration here. There is the members, etc. So that actually worked really well. Let's go take a look at the device itself. So here is the active. You can see it's in sync here, and of course I was actually logged out of the secondary. Let's go and just take a look in here. This is the standby device. So you can see standby right there, and of course active right here. You can see there is the big IP1, big IP2. This device group is configured nicely with the failover group right here, and of course on the second one, if we look at the same thing here, device group there, this is itself, this is obviously the master, this is the standby, and you can kind of see the same thing here. So that is how to use declarative onboarding to configure your device trust, to configure your failover groups, to configure your VLANs, to configure your networks. So I really like this. This is actually really smooth. It's actually easier than using the wizard. Much easier than using the wizard. The caveats, this device has to be clean. So if it's not clean, I'm actually going to post a video that actually explains, or I'm going to post a document that explains how to clean this up. Because if it's not clean, it's not going to work. It's actually going to fail. So what I'm also going to do is I'm actually going to post this declaration here on my GitHub page. You can see tips and tricks. I'm going to post it right here. I'm actually in the process of writing this up. What you will find here is you'll find the two declarations. So these declarations absolutely 100% work. I'd recommend you just clone this, change your network configuration and your naming, and kind of off you go. Really appreciate you watching this video. If you like this content, please give me a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm chasing 500 subscribers. That's pretty cool because this is related to big IP content and automation of big IPs. So that really helps of course, the YouTube algorithm, etc. And if you've got any more ideas on what you would like to see, please drop a comment, and I can work on those ideas. Thank you very much.